Hello, and thank you for joining us on the next edition of the Absolutely Bookkeeping podcast. Today, I am joined by Justine Marshall. Hi, Justine. Can you introduce yourself and a little bit about your business, please?
Hey, I'm Justine Marshall, and I run Pinpoint Plus in Glasgow, recently rebranded. We digitalise the financial processes of businesses and go on to give them operational and strategic support.
Brilliant. And how did your journey begin into the bookkeeping world? What made you want to become a bookkeeper?
Well, that's an interesting story because I started bookkeeping on paper ledgers for my dad's business many, many years ago. But at the time I was doing computing at school. So I brought in computers and computerized it on a software called Quicken, which was just like a cash book, basically. But it sort of revolutionized it. And I was like, okay, this is the way I've got to go in future. But my dad's business was a fairground. And I was quite encouraged to be entrepreneurial in that environment. I mean, you know, at the age of probably 10, I identified that our snack bar didn't sell crisps. So I bought crisps and set up opposite them and sold crisps. And I was given a change belt to give out change at times. You know, I made the candy floss. As I got older, I left school at 16, no qualifications or anything like that. And I did things like I converted the fairground into a rollerblading rink over winter. One year we had a shop in town that wasn't rented out, and I put a Christmas shop in there. I then put a permanent beauty salon in there. Now, eventually I met my husband in Glasgow and decided that although I loved my job, I really wanted to live in a bigger city because it was a small town and I wasn't, you know, that happy there. So I moved to Glasgow, and on my way out, I had to sell my shop. And I went to the accountant and said to him, you know, I need to sell it. I'm moving away. He said, what are you going to do next? I was like, I have no idea. I've got no qualifications. Like, the only person I've ever worked for is my dad. I can't, like, how am I going to get a job? And he said, well, why don't you do bookkeeping? Because he'd obviously seen me carry out bookkeeping for various people in various businesses and all the rest of it. So he basically instructed me on a textbook to buy, and I bought the textbook and I worked through it. And then at the end of each chapter, there was questions and answers. So I worked through all that, and then I went and sat exams through Ideal Schools. So I never sat in a classroom or did anything like that. So basically, that's how it all started. But it was really it allowed me to use the entrepreneurial spirit within other people's businesses. So I love that variety. And then
so you could really relate. Yeah.
Say again.
So you could really relate to them and how you grow a business. Yeah.
Yeah, but for me, it was really the technology, bringing in the technology that really sort of sparked me, if you like, and kind of set me on a journey with my business. So it's been fun. It's been great.
What's the one word you would use to describe your relationship with technology at the moment in your business?
I like to think that I'm absolutely on top.
So let's talk about favorites now. What is the app or software that you simply could not run your business without?
So I really, really love Telleroo. I was in on the journey before it even had a name. They contacted me on LinkedIn and said, hey, we've got this idea. Would you jump on a call with us and go through it? And so I was really able to input my ideas at the baby stages, if you like. And it ended up being a product that I absolutely love. And it took me on the journey from being a client's bookkeeper to becoming their accounts department, which is really where I feel we shine.
Yeah. So would you say it was a game changer for you and your business and your clients?
Absolutely, yeah. I think the clients really, really benefit from the additional service. And for me, when you have a supplier payment run under your own control, you're identifying really quickly if you've got missing bills Whereas if you were doing it the other way, you'd have to wait until the bills were paid before you knew there was missing items.
Yeah.
So for me, like, I'm endeavouring to try and do daily bookkeeping for our clients and increase the level of service to that with the help of some bots. So if, you know, it's really giving proper current figures. We're not finding the mistakes later after we've issued the profit and loss. So for me, it kind of closes the circle on the accuracy.
And would you say, what was the main problems that it solved for you by using Telleroo? So what problems did it solve you as a practice owner, and B, for your clients?
I think as a practice owner, I benefit from the added services, and we've kind of brought in credit control and things like that around it. So it's given me a new platform, if you like, and it all started with Telleroo. And I feel like we can have bigger clients that sort of need that sort of service as well. And for the client, they're not giving the keys of the castle away. They don't have to trust us with their bank details. We don't want that anyway. Also, on the odd occasion that I had tried to do supplier payments, I never ever found a bank that would take an import. I don't know, I would try everything and I couldn't get the figures to import into a supplier payment run. There were so many glitches. Whereas with Telleroo, I mean, they've gone beyond importing CSVs anyway, but because it just connects straight with Xero. But when they did start and they were importing, it just worked every time. There was no issue around that. So the flow was always brilliant. And their support system is second to none. I mean, if you need a credit control, like a credit increase, they come back to you literally within about 5 minutes every time. Wow. I've never had to wait longer than that. So for me, that's a phenomenal service.
It is. Can you walk us through how you use it in your day-to-day workflow? So what's the process that you would do? So say like you've got the client's bills and to the end product. What's the workflow?
So we integrate it largely with our workflow software, which is my second best software, called Carbon.
Yeah.
And basically, throughout the month, if we see a statement in HubDoc, we use HubDoc, not necessarily the most popular choice, but I was their first UK customer, so I'm sticking with them. So HubDoc we'll find statements in there. So what our team does is go in, compare the statement with the invoices, and if the invoices are correct, they'll go to our workflow software, Carbon. They'll upload the statement there, and they'll state the amount due. Now, we track that on Xero by adding an expected payment date. So if there's an expected payment date there, then we understand that we've checked it and it's ready to go on the due date. So that kind of happens throughout the month. And then when we close in on the due date, we will go through the list of outstanding things, and we might have to make calls to verify the balance. But we basically make sure that everything is valid and due. So the client then is sent the list via Carbon, and that's got the paperwork, the statements attached. Sometimes it's just the invoices if we don't have a statement. They can come back to us on each sort of line item in a text message style fashion and say, you know, please don't pay this one, or, you know, we want to hold payment until a bit of a later date, or can you show us the paperwork and we'll upload the actual invoices. And then they're instructed to make a transfer into Telleroo for the whole amount. And we just basically process the payment within Xero, and that zaps magically into Telleroo. And I or the client tend to approve. Yeah. But Telleroo are actually launching an app at the moment, which I'm again beta testing, and it's fantastic. I can just log into the app and approve whatever's outstanding, but they're going to roll that out to the clients. So at that stage, my plan is to take myself off approvals. Yeah. Because, you know, from my point of view, it's not ideal that I do the approvals, but I also recognize that a lot of my client base aren't sitting at desks. They don't want to have to log into something else. Whereas if they've got the convenience of doing it on their phone and there's no sort of, it's just through their Face ID or their finger or whatever it is, I don't feel bad asking them to go to that extra step. So we will move over as soon as that's launched to the public.
Fabulous. Are there any clever automations or tips that you have for setting it up, or that makes your life easier with using Telleroo? Now, you've obviously mentioned that you've linked it with Carbon, which makes your life a lot easier. Any other tips with that?
I think it's not physically linked with Carbon. It's our system that's linked with Carbon, but maybe that's the next thing I should talk to them about. I'm a bit demanding. But I think the setup is actually really easy. It's apparently not a bank account, but it's very, very looks and feels like one.
Yeah.
But you can basically set up the majority of your clients' details. You set up like the company details and one director. And then that director is emailed and they're asked to upload documents. But sometimes for our own AML, we already have the documents. So there's actually a portal you can go and log into, and then you can say to your clients, I've done that for you already. So in terms of a pain point for the client themselves, it's really not an issue. The only problem that I've come across is if the client doesn't have an email address in their own URL.
Yeah.
That can be a little bit of a pain, because obviously they've got their own anti-money laundering checks. So all you have to do is get a signed letter from the client saying that they use that for work purposes, and that clears you of that. And beyond that, it's issue free, as far as all the experience I've had anyway.
Has it helped you scale or save time or even keep your sanity? I know a lot of apps that we use, a lot of it is to help us scale or save time, but has it helped you with your sanity as well? Like really positive using it?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it was something additional like that I added. It wasn't really fixing a problem that I already had. It was just enhancing the service that I provided. And like I say, it took me on that journey of just sort of making that bigger and being the whole accounts department for the client. I get a lot of satisfaction out of that, perhaps not sanity.
Yeah. Okay. Are there any common mistakes that you've seen other bookkeepers have when they're just going to do this kind of services? So like obviously you're doing end-to-end services, you're doing the payment service. Do you see common mistakes that you've seen like other bookkeepers make using this kind of service?
I haven't spoken to anyone that's had an issue with it. I suppose from my own point of view, I have been a little bit trigger happy and occasionally approved things before they were actually approved, just once or twice. I'm usually pretty anal about these things, but I have probably occasionally done that, but it's, that's on me and my focus rather than anything wrong with the products.
If you had a magic wand and you could change just one thing about Telleroo, what would you improve if you had to improve anything?
I mean, I've just sent them feedback on the app. I wanted a different screen. They were showing all items, and I wanted a different filter just to show the outstanding items. But they really are building the app for the client, not for the bookkeeper. So for the client, it's probably quite useful to see the all screen, and it's really not that much work for me to filter it. So there's that. I'm wondering about this idea that I've just popped into my head about actual physical integration with Carbon, but I don't know how they would do that, because we're sending statements and the statements aren't landing in Telleroo. So I'm not sure if there's anything they can do around that, but I'll have to start thinking about it.
Would you recommend it to other bookkeepers to take this kind of service and use Telleroo?
Absolutely. I think you're becoming so much more important to the client if you can provide them with this sort of service level. And I think we're in an age now of technology, and we really need that human connection to filter through our service. And these are the touch points where we're going to get that, where a bot can't really replace that.
Now, you've mentioned you've kind of supercharged Telleroo by using your own service Carbon to get the data that you need. Have you considered kind of supercharging it with any other apps? We know that it integrates well with Xero, which is what your platform you use. What other apps have you supercharged it with, or what possibly are you thinking about in the future?
I don't think we've got any other integration with it. No, I mean, it does things like if the client hasn't funded the account, it will automatically send you an email.
Yeah.
so that you can sort of say to the client, oh, listen, this hasn't been funded, you know, although we've approved it and you've gone through the approval process in Carbon, we haven't approved that. There's obviously an approval function within Telleroo that we don't use because it involves a login, so I can't really speak on that. But do you know what? It's simple, it's straightforward. It doesn't need anything else, I don't think. I'm always open to more things, but it's just, I think its beauty is in its simplicity, the fact that it just works really solidly.
No, that's fantastic. Now we're going to switch out of Telleroo. I'm going to ask you, what are your 3 favourite apps to go to in your tech stack that's apart from Telleroo?
Okay, so Carbon is definitely for sure. I think it allowed me to scale. So I mean, I did have another workflow software, but it didn't. The thing with Carbon is it centralizes around your inbox. So you can attach, you can tag other people in your team to emails, you can tag them to the work items for full visibility of your team. And that was the point for me where I felt like, okay, I can relax now. There's nothing going to get forgotten. It's just going to flow, and it doesn't need me to be making sure that that's happening. So my team have really utilized that, and that's been amazing. Obviously Xero, that I feel that, you know, I was a big Sage user before that, and I had a client who needed they were kind of growing really quickly, and they said to me, you know, the people upstairs have got 4 people in their accounts department and we've just got you. Like, when should we change that? And I said, well, when you think that what we're doing for you isn't enough anymore. And he was like, it's enough, but it's just late. It takes so long. So that's kind of how we explored and found Xero. And I think that just opened up my digital journey and made the whole thing more fun for me because I love all that stuff. Yeah. And I probably should say that I like HubDoc. I know that people don't, and I do agree that all these other ones are coming with a lot more bells and whistles. But and maybe I haven't given them enough of a chance because HubDoc's free as well. You know, I don't really want to stray from free if I can help it, but you know, I think it's a decent offering. And the other one that we use that I think is a phenomenal software is Chaser for credit control.
Yeah. Fabulous. How often do you review your app stack? So do you have set times when you review it, or do you find that when there's an issue that you start reviewing your processes and your app stacks?
I'm just more of an evolving person. I've got 3 children that I kind of juggle alongside this. So I just always have my ear to the ground. I go on a ski trip every year with some award-winning accountants, the person that built Carbon, the person that built, one of the guys from Telleroo is there. So I kind of get to mix with these incredible people with incredible ideas. And I think just remaining open to whatever you hear is quite a good thing. But at the same time, I've got to be wary that my team are maybe not so tech forward. And every now and again, they're like, oh, not another one. You're not doing this again. I'd like to give a shout out to Socket, the proposals.
Yep.
I think, you know, Go Cardless lost its way a little. Not Go Cardless, Go Proposal lost its way a little bit, and we've switched to Socket, and I really, really like it.
Yeah, brilliant. I think that's a clever software, very evolving as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Have you ever had a software disaster with like so reliant on software and then the software says no kind of thing, and a disaster? Have you ever had that kind of moment?
I think it's no major disaster, but I remember at the time that I'd switched to Xero, I also switched a couple of clients to QuickBooks Online, and it was due to to it being cheaper for them, really. But I really didn't enjoy it, and I spent quite a lot of time. I used to find the search, like when you were trying to reconcile a payment against invoices, and it would only show you the last 3 months. And I would repeatedly look for that, and it was so unnatural to me that you'd have to spread the search for it. So, but I remember once having an issue where I really was searching for transactions, and I couldn't get it right, and eventually got in touch with support, and they told me there was a glitch in the software. And I've never experienced that with Xero. I don't know if I'd have experienced it again with QuickBooks, or if that was a one-off, because I switched immediately after. I thought, I can't spend hours and hours looking for things only to find that there's been an error in the actual the data itself. But could have been a one-off. I don't know.
What's your advice for bookkeepers out there who feel overwhelmed by all the software and all the apps that are available at the moment out there? A lot of them attend all these brilliant events and they get magpie syndrome with all these shiny new things. What would be your best advice to them?
Mm-hmm. I don't know, because I'm attracted by the shiny things too. I think you have to. Oh, I tell you, there was a disaster. Now that's springing to mind. We moved to KeyPay payroll software, and I moved all my clients because I was like, I just want one system and that's it. And we had issue after issue after issue with them. I don't know if they've improved since then, but they were agreeing that things were wrong. But it was an absolute disaster for me, because we then had to move everyone back.
Yeah.
So I think you've got to be really, really careful about your rollout process. You need to trial it on one or two clients. If you're adding to that trial, you need to maybe think about the ones that might have idiosyncrasies, particularly if you're like me and want just one system, which, is not necessarily the best for the client. And there's definitely an argument that you should maybe go for the best software for the client. But for me, I think our team can operate at its optimum level if we pick a software and stick to it. So that's pretty much how we operate. But if you're going to go with that, you really need to have a really rigorous testing phase and really good training, making sure that your team are actually using all of the product rather than just the bits that are easy. And that's probably what my advice would be.
No, that's great advice. Great advice. Right, we're moving on to the quick fire round. These are the last few questions I have for you today. So,
Okay.
iPhone or Android?
iPhone.
Xero, QuickBooks or Sage?
Xero.
Coffee or tea?
Tea. I drink more of coffee. I prefer. I don't know which. Tea.
Okay. What is the one piece of tech or business wisdom you wish you learnt at the beginning rather than later?
I think I wish I'd gotten Xero sooner. I got on fairly early. I think it was 2014, but it was there for quite a few years before that. And I think it just would have opened up my process a bit quicker.
Right. And finally, my final question today is, what is the app you think is underrated and deserves a little bit more love?
HubDoc.
So that's fantastic. Okay, that was brilliant today. Thank you very much, Justine. That was so insightful, and I really loved learning about Telleroo and all the other apps mentioned. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.